The Hitchhiker's Warning. Mike and Karen were driving cross-country for their honeymoon, eager to explore the remote beauty of the Pacific Northwest. The scenic route had been breathtaking during the day, but as night fell, the winding roads became treacherous. "Mike, we'll stop at the next rest area. Karen?" The highway was eerily deserted, and when a dimly lit rest stop appeared ahead, they pulled in without hesitation. The area was empty save for a single rusting car parked near the entrance. Karen headed for the restroom while Mike stretched his legs. As he walked past the parked car, he noticed its windows were fogged up from the inside. A faint tapping sound caught his attention. Someone was knocking on the passenger side window. Curiosity getting the better of him, Mike approached. Inside was a young man, his face pale and eyes wide with terror. "Young man, help me!" Before Mike could react, the car's engine roared to life and sped off, tires squealing on the pavement. Stunned, Mike stood frozen. Karen returned moments later, concern etched on her face. "Karen, what's wrong, Mike? I think someone needed help." They decided to report the incident at the next town, but as they drove, Karen glanced in the side mirror and gasped. "Karen! Mike, he's in the back seat!" Mike slammed on the brakes, skidding to a halt. They both turned to look. The back seat was empty. Shaken, they continued driving, eager to reach civilization, but the road stretched endlessly before them, and every mile seemed identical to the last. The tension in the car was palpable. Then, out of nowhere, a figure appeared on the side of the road, the same young man from the car, standing in the darkness. His eyes still wide with fear. They didn't stop, they didn't look back. When they finally reached the next town, they told their story to the local sheriff. The sheriff's face turned grim. "Sheriff, you're not the first to see him. A hitchhiker died on that stretch of road years ago. They say he appears to warn travelers, but not everyone makes it out after seeing him." It was supposed to be a routine trip for Jessica and her friends. A weekend road trip through the southwest desert had sounded like the perfect escape. As they cruised down a desolate stretch of highway under the scorching sun, they laughed, played music, and enjoyed the emptiness around them. But as night fell, the desert's charm turned sinister. The road seemed endless, and the horizon swallowed their headlights. Just as Jessica considered pulling over for a break, a flickering neon sign appeared in the distance: Last Chance Gas and Diner. Taylor looked at it skeptically and said, "Looks sketchy." Jessica, trying to lighten the mood, replied, "Better than peeing in the desert." Jessica joked, pulling in. The diner and gas station were relics of a bygone era. Rusted pumps, peeling paint, and a single flickering bulb above the entrance. They were the only customers. An older woman behind the counter gave them a nod as they walked in. Jessica asked, "Bathrooms?" The woman pointed to a door at the far end of the diner without a word. Jessica made her way to the restroom. The hallway was dimly lit and smelled of mildew. She pushed open the creaky door and immediately regretted it. The room was grimy with cracked tiles and a broken mirror. But necessity outweighed disgust. As she washed her hands, the overhead light flickered violently, casting unsettling shadows. Then, faintly, a sound echoed from one of the stalls. It was soft at first. A scraping noise, like nails on metal. "Jessica! Hello!" Jessica called, assuming one of her friends had followed her. Silence. Then the sound again, louder this time. Jessica took a step toward the stalls, her heart pounding. She pushed open the door of the nearest one, empty. One by one, she checked each stall. All were vacant. Suddenly the lights went out completely, plunging the room into darkness. Jessica fumbled for her phone, turning on the flashlight. The beam sliced through the blackness, landing on a shadow at the far end of the restroom. The figure was impossibly tall, its limbs elongated and contorted. Its head tilted unnaturally as though observing her. Jessica couldn't breathe, couldn't move. The figure started to advance. She bolted for the door, flinging it open and racing back to the diner. Her friends looked up, alarmed by her wild expression. "Jessica, we need to leave, now!" They didn't question her urgency. As they sped away, Jessica glanced in the rearview mirror. The neon sign of the diner flickered out, leaving the highway in total darkness.
In the heart of the Appalachian Mountains, long stretches of highway wind through isolated dense forests. One particular night, Marcus, a seasoned truck driver, was hauling a load of construction materials along Route 74, known among drivers as Devil's Stretch due to its eerie reputation. It was past midnight, and a thick fog hugged the road like a shroud. Despite his years on the road, Marcus felt a twinge of unease. The last pit stop had been miles back, and his next scheduled break was still far ahead. The glowing GPS on his dashboard informed him there was a small truck stop coming up, a place he'd never seen before, despite traveling this route countless times. Relieved at the unexpected reprieve, Marcus pulled in. The truck stop was oddly pristine for such a remote location. The fuel pumps gleamed under harsh fluorescent lights, and the convenience store's large windows showcased neatly stocked shelves. Only a couple of other trucks were parked in the lot, their drivers nowhere to be seen. Marcus refueled and decided to stretch his legs. The quiet was unsettling. No insects buzzed, no wind rustled through the trees. It was as though sound itself had been sucked out of the world. Shrugging off his apprehension, he walked into the store. The interior was as sterile as the outside, too clean, too perfect. A tall man in a faded uniform stood behind the counter, his smile unsettlingly wide. "Tall man, good evening." "Marcus, evening. Been driving a while, didn't expect a stop out here." "Tall man, we're always here for travelers." Marcus paid and walked back to his truck. The moment he stepped outside, the oppressive silence returned. He tried to shake off his nerves as he climbed into the cab. Just before he could close the door, he heard something. The faintest whisper of a voice carried on the dead air. Whisper, "Leave." Heart pounding, Marcus whipped around. No one was there. The few parked trucks looked abandoned, dark and lifeless. He decided it was time to go. As he put the truck into gear, his headlights illuminated the fog ahead, and a shadowy figure standing in the middle of the road. Slamming on the brakes, Marcus squinted into the gloom. The figure remained motionless, barely visible through the swirling mist. Then it took a step closer, and Marcus's blood ran cold. The figure had no face, just smooth, featureless flesh where eyes, nose, and mouth should have been. Without waiting to see more, Marcus floored the accelerator. The figure disappeared into the fog as his truck roared down the highway. Heart racing, he vowed never to stop there again. Weeks later, he mentioned the eerie pit stop to a fellow trucker, only to be met with a grim stare. "Fellow trucker, there's no truck stop on that stretch of road, hasn't been for years. It burned down after a gas explosion, killed everyone inside."